Okay, people, I'm going to ask you a very blunt question. Do you know every piece of information that's in your Social Security file? Now, hear me when I say this, because somebody's going to get an attitude. I know the neck is rolling, the head is going like this, ta-da-da. Here's what I'm saying when I say this. A lot of times people get frustrated when they get decisions from Social Security without having a complete knowledge of what is in their file. That's the first thing. I tell people all the time, don't get frustrated when you get certain denials. Like when you get the first couple of denials at the local office level, you get frustrated because you're like, I didn't ask for this medical records, they didn't ask for this, and they didn't ask for that. I don't understand. True that. I understand that. When you get to the hearing level, it gets a little bit more complicated because at this particular point, you're going before a judge. If you don't have a representative, you're going to have access to your file. So I always tell people, when you get access to your file, one, do you know what's in your file? I mean, what I mean by know, meaning do you understand what's in your file? Do you appreciate and understand what is actually in your file? If you understand what's in your file, then you should be able to understand what is missing from your file. And then when we start talking about understanding, meaning when you look at those medical records, what do you see that the doctors are saying? Oh, they say I'm diagnosed with this. Okay. What about the objective testing, results of the testing? What do they say? Well, I'm not sure. Well, what about the objective examinations? What do they say? Well, I'm not sure. If you saying I'm not sure to some of these questions, are when you see the MRI, where it says, oh, it says that I have a bad back. Is that exactly what it says? Now, when it says I have stenosis, what kind of stenosis? What do you mean by it? Is it mild stenosis? Are they saying that? What are the doctor's interpretation of that particular examination, MRI? Well, I'm not really sure. That's why I tell people, if you don't understand all those particular nuances, then you probably don't really know every piece of information that's in your file. Because the reality is that Social Security, especially the judges, they're relying on these various nuances when they're trying to make an informed decision about whether you are or are not disabled. And I say this also to say this from kind of the context of not trying to be stank, but trying to make sure that I educate all of you to say this. Before you start raising hell and fire and brimstone about what somebody is or isn't doing for you, about what Social Security has or has not done in your case, if you don't have a complete informed idea or knowledge about every piece of nuance in your case, you're basically making decisions on emotion. So when you get angry because you've got 10 doctors and one doctor who you believe should be relied upon says you're disabled, but the other 9 say you're not, then you're not understanding the nuances of the Social Security Administration in terms of how they interplay. Now, keep in mind, if the other 9 are doctors that are unrelated to your situation, like let's say 3 or 4 are chiropractors and they're not, your main condition is mental health. The one doctor you have is a psychiatrist. That doctor says that from a mental health standpoint, you can't focus or do work because you can't concentrate, you're horrible around crowds, you get stressed really easily, and that you have to be around nobody. But then all the other ones are physical. Well, then under that context, I can understand where you could be really frustrated. But understand how all of the records interplay. Because keep in mind this is where it pops up like this again. Let's say that the doctor from the psychiatrist says you can't focus or deal with anybody, but then you go back and you put in your forms, oh yeah, that I go grocery shopping, I take my kids to school, and then wait a minute, your psych doctor says you can't be around anybody, but you're going grocery shopping, that puts you around people. You take your kids to school, that puts you around people. You didn't mention any problems or concerns. And most people get fired up. They say, that's because I got to do what I got to do, but you're missing the picture. And that's why I tell people, listen to me when I say this. Don't take this the wrong way. Get an understanding of the information that's in your file. If you know every piece of information that's in your file so that you can be completely informed as to the various nuances, I applaud you. But if you don't, get someone who can be educated about all the nuances of your file. And if not, at least someone who can educate you so that this way you will have enough information in order to make an informed decision and know why Social Security moves in one direction or the other.